Hello, and welcome to round 9 of Battle of the Decades, the show where I, Chuchu of Chuchu is a Ranker, recap my Album of the Year series, correct any glaring mistakes I made via my Album of the Year choices, and also indulge in a totally nonsense yet hopefully fun tournament to find out what was the best decade in music. And on this episode, we're going to be throwing all the 8s into the ring. 1968, 1978, 1988, 1998, 2008, and 2018. So let's have a look at our Albums of the Year roster. From 1968 we have Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. From 1978 we have 52nd Street by Billy Joel. From 1988 we have Spirit of Eden by Talk Talk. From 1998 we have Moon Safari by Air. From 2008 we have The Midnight Organ Fight by Frightened Rabbit. And from 2018 we have Be the Cowboy by Mitski. And as for corrections, well, there's just one, and that would be 1998. To be honest, 98 was a year that I struggled with. It was difficult to find an album that I absolutely unreservedly loved. Moon Safari is a great record that defined and helped popularise the emerging genre of chill out. But as much as I like it, it's still not a record that drives me crazy. Thankfully, the Placebo discography ranker I just did solved my 1998 problem. So, Step Forward Without You I'm Nothing by Placebo, which is officially taking its place as my 1998 Album of the Year. And with that change, I'm now fully satisfied with these selections. So, now the battlefield has been prepared, let's be complete rankers and rank into the very fabric of time itself. This is Battle of the Decades, Round 9. Coming in last and netting the 2010s 1 point, we have Be the Cowboy by Mitski from 2018, which was the American singer-songwriter's 5th LP. And here we have a short, sharp 32-minute album of uniquely idiosyncratic guitar pop that sounds sugary on the surface but is given weight by Mitski's deeply personal and often depressed lyrics. It's that old Smithsian chestnut of bright, upbeat tunes married to sour lyrics. And it works as well here as it ever has. And despite Mitski breaking out into the mainstream with her most recent LP, This Land Is Inhospitable and So Are We, it's right here on Be the Cowboy that she's at her absolute best, with the jangly, enjoyable tunage catching the ear just as much as her lyrics. Highlights from a lightweight yet emotive release includes Why Didn't You Stop Me, which is a twee yet growling indie pop number with a great 1980s style guitar break that's a lot of cheesy fun. A Pearl drags in some heavy-set grunge guitar work for a cool track that gets pretty epic as layers of effects and trumpets start creeping in. Lonesome Love, meanwhile, has that miserable, downbeat element that Mitski has become famous for, as she notably sighs, "Nobody fucks me like me." Talking about that kind of thing, Pink in the Night is a thinly veiled song about masturbation. But hey, I'm personally okay to imagine Mitski rubbing one out anytime. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna get a box of tissues. Washing Machine Heart does indeed live up to its name with its stuttering mechanical rhythm, marking it out as something unique and fun. While Nobody is arguably Mitski's most catchy and direct song, its gleaming upbeat pop melody hiding a despair-laden lyric, it's great. So yeah, Be the Cowboy by Mitski is a great modern pop record that seems to be keeping the self-deprecating legacy of Morrissey and his jangle pop ilk alive and well. Wonderful stuff, 4.5 stars. Next up, netting the 1970s 2 points, we have 52nd Street by Billy Joel from 1978, which was the Piano Man's 6th LP and the follow-up to his worldwide smash hit album, The Stranger. And here we find Joel continuing in the same vein as his previous breakout record, using the same type of rich and warm 1970s production and instantly inviting, radio-friendly soft rock. But a new wrinkle is at least partially introduced via the album's more jazz-orientated elements. After all, 52nd Street in Billy's native New York City was known as that city's centre of jazz performance from the 1930s to the 1950s. I say partially though, as it's actually a bit of a ruse, with the overt jazz influences only really coming to the fore on the track Zanzibar. But slightly dubious marketing aside, and the Piano Man hits another home run here, providing a consistent and entertaining LP that also has a clutch of real hard bangers on it too. Highlights on one of Billy's best albums includes the opening Big Shot with its stuttering guitar work and playful put-downs about egotistical celebrities losing themselves in their vices, which also works as a bit of a self-reflection on Joel himself at the time. Odyssey is one of Billy's most iconic songs, its velveteen balladry enlivened by an unforgettable sing-along chorus. The aforementioned Zanzibar is amazing with its excellent jazz trumpet breaks, summoning up images of smoky sweat-stained basements and the packed jazz haunts of the past. Stiletto also rules with its ice-cool funky slither that expertly mixes catchy pop with moody-sounding prog rock. Its piano and trumpet figures are just great. Rosalinda's Eyes is a Caribbean-sounding ballad that digs in with its calypso shuffle and cocktails by the poolside romanticism, while Until the Night kicks ass with its ridiculously grandiose balladry that is epic in all the most overwrought and bombastic ways. It also features one of the cheesiest, most hilariously overblown saxophone solos ever put to tape, which is rad! So yeah, add into that the fun, energetic radio rock of My Life and Half a Mile Away, and you have a Billy Joel LP that catches him at the absolute zenith of his powers. 5 stars. Next up, netting the 1993 points, we have Without You I'm Nothing by Placebo from 1998, which was the androgynous goth rocker's second and best LP. Not that you could have told me that back in the late 90s. I picked up this album on CD when it was new and I just really didn't like it at all. I thought it was dirgy and boring. Personally, I blame Britpop. All those upbeat sounding melodies and bastard trumpets bamboozled my noggin. But thankfully, I took the time recently to make a full discography ranker for Placebo and discovered that whilst yes, the record is still quite dirgy, it is not in the least bit boring. Sad, distant and a fair bit kinky, yes. Boring, no. And this LP sees Placebo at their most atmospherically compelling, giving over a large portion of their runtime to languorously dour stripped-back slices of melancholia such as Ask for Answers, The Crawl, My Sweet Prince and the utterly gorgeous closing track Burger Queen. But the more rocking side is also aptly taken care of too, with the industrial-tinged opener Pure Morning, the boisterously catchy Brick Shithouse, the Cure aping You Don't Care About Us, and the bouncingly relentless Every You Every Me satisfying with their more pop-orientated immediacy. So yeah, add into that the buzzing chaos of Allergic to Thoughts of Mother Earth, and the awesome snaking guitarist of the title track Without You I'm Nothing, and you have a brilliant album that begs the question, what the hell was my teenage self thinking back then? Probably not much. I had shit for brains, and well, yeah, I probably still do. 5 stars. Next up, netting the 2000's 4 points, we have The Midnight Organ Fight by Frightened Rabbit from 2008, which was the band's second LP and the one that saw them break out not only into the mainstream, but into the indie pop zeitgeist. Indeed, the impact from this record was so large that it actually came to define the general sound of indie guitar pop for a while. And it's easy to see why. The album's jangly soundscapes are instantly inviting, and Scott Hutchinson's superb, deeply emotional lyrics are both compelling and heartbreaking. And speaking of Scott Hutchinson, of course I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the tragedy of his death. On this album you have the track Floating in the Fourth, which contains the pretty explicit lyric, "Fully clothed, I float away down the Forth into the sea. I think I'll save suicide for another year." Cue 10 years later in 2018, the poor sad silly sausage threw himself off the Forth Bridge and into oblivion. And as terrible as that is, it does undeniably add a real weight and legitimacy to his lyrical content, with some of the moments of pain on this record being hard to bear. But that's not to say it's all doom and gloom though, as there are some great moments of catchy jangle pop to delight in too. Tracks like I Feel Better and Fast Blood have an angular, punky demeanour, recalling the energy of early period Block Party. Old Fashioned and The Twist, on the other hand, have a wonderfully twee whimsy to them and a billowing, carefree romanticism. While Head Rolls Off is an awesome, super catchy atheist anthem, as over a stomping jangle pop banger, Hutchinson hilariously states, "Give me the cloth and I'll wipe my face." But ultimately, it's the huge ballads that end up lingering with you the longest. My Backwards Walk has a painfully cracked acoustic composition, with Scott falling into romantic despair, quotably concluding, "You're the shit and I'm knees deep in it." Talking about romantic despair, Poke is so tender that it's kind of hard to breathe while listening to it. "Why won't our love keel over as it chokes on a bone? We can mourn its passing and then bury it in snow. Or should we kick its cunt in and watch as it dies from bleeding? If you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go." While the band's signature tune, Keep Yourself Warm, is a romantically abandoned howl of a song, the way it builds up from a heartbroken ballad into a thrashing rocker is pretty spectacular. Mwah! Chef's kiss, that track is a banger. So yeah, The Midnight Organ Fight is an absolutely brilliant jangle pop masterwork that features a lyrical performance to die for. Rest in peace, Scott Hutchinson, you genius. 5 stars.
Takes more fucking someone to keep yourself seen in the dark. They see look in your face, the flashing white lights been turned off. You don't know who is in your bed.
Next up, and netting the 1980s 5 points, we have Spirit of Eden by the also-ran new wave pop act Talk Talk from 1988. Or perhaps that should be formerly new wave pop act, as little by little over their second and third albums, the band had been showing more and more avant-garde tendencies, threading some delectable experimentation through their mainstream synth pop. But here on their fourth LP, much to their label's chagrin, the band totally ditched the pop and go all in with a breathtaking set of minimalist post-rock. Now, these days of course we can identify this as post-rock, as by now the genre has been well established. But back in 1988 nobody had heard anything quite like this, and it arrived to dismissive critical apathy and commercial crickets. But to quote Marty McFly, "I guess you guys just aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna love it." Because as time went by, both Spirit of Eden and the band's fifth and final LP, Laughingstock, became underground cult classics and developed eventual bulletproof critical praise. So I think it's very fair to say that Talk Talk was substantially ahead of their time. And the musical content of this record is very hard to describe, as it feels so loose and nebulous, more like moods and jazzily sparse instrumentation washing over you rather than properly structured songs. Which is a ruse, as main man Mark Hollis was a perfectionist in the studio, and these songs were actually very tightly arranged, with every single note being agonised over. And as for highlights, that would be a moot point, as Spirit of Eden is just not that kind of album. It's one where you just have to take in the relaxing, flowing vibes and gently cathartic atmospheres as a whole. The entire LP feels like one singular, evolving piece. Still though, Eden has a slowly building geyser of warm guitars that rise out of the depths during its peak swells. Desire flits between quiet minimalism and blast of discordant feedback-smothered guitar house. Inheritance has a low jazzy vibe and woodwinds that flutter around like uncaged butterflies. Wealth feels halfway between beautiful piano ballad and church hymn, while I Believe in You is a gorgeous subtle ballad that feels pregnant with sorrow that gradually transforms into hope. The moments where Mark Hollis tenderly croons the words spirit and healing as heavenly synths cascade all around him is a proper hairs on the back of the neck moment. So yeah, I don't think my words can convey just how beautiful and emotive the soundscapes are on Spirit of Eden. It's just something you have to go and find out for yourself. But I will take this moment to address the discography ranker I made a long time ago for Talk Talk. On that episode I put Laughingstock at number 1. I have since come to regret that. Laughingstock should have been at number 3, Colour of Spring should have been at number 2, and Spirit of Eden should have been top of the mountain as Talk Talk's ultimate masterpiece. 5 stars. Coming in first and netting the 1960s a full 6 points, we have Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies from 1968, which was the band's second LP. And here we have a psychedelic pop masterpiece that, much like the previous Talk Talk album, was released to critical indifference and sank without much commercial success, even though the band did score a one-hit wonder in America with the now iconic closing track Time of the Season. But so bad was the failure of this record, which the band had financed themselves after being dropped by their label, that it routed the Zombies completely and they broke up. However, again, much like the Talk Talk LP, the passage of time turned Odyssey and Oracle into a slowly building cult classic, and it's now hailed as one of the more critically acclaimed albums of the 1960s. And with good reason, as it's absolutely fantastic from start to finish and hasn't lost a step since its release. The atmospheric texturing on the record is simply amazing. The way it lets all the instrumentation breathe without overcluttering things, yet still manages to maintain a psychedelic clam-baked feel is pretty damn impressive. And the songs are all brilliant, full of sparkling guitar riffs, delopherously rich organ work, soaring vocal harmonies and instant melodic catchiness. It really is the perfect storm of a 1960s pop record. Highlights from a barnstorming all-time classic includes the bouncing opener Care of Cell 44, which has the lyrically odd scenario of welcoming home someone after a stint behind bars. Hopefully not for something horrific like kiddie fiddling or cold-blooded murder. Beechwood Park has a star-strewn vibe as the beautiful organ work and layered vocals add a dark velveteen feel to the track. Hung Up on a Dream is absolutely rad, it's dramatic psychedelia kicking ass with some awesome guitar licks that sound like they're calling forward to post-punk. Butcher's Tale 1914 is a great theatrical tune about the poor sods who fought and died during World War I. It's actually surprisingly graphic for a 1960s pop song. And I have seen a friend of mine, hung on a wire like some rag toy, and in the heat the flies come down and cover up the boy. Conversely, Friends of Mine is a superb stomping Britpop banger that's instantly joyous and catchy, while the iconic hit Time of the Season is great with its slithering groove and breathy cool. But yeah, you can't go wrong with any of these songs, from the hymnal piano ballad A Rose for Emily, to the lilting autumnal vibes of Maybe After He's Gone, to the thumping chorus of Brief Candles, to the fun lusty surf rock of I Want Her, She Wants Me. It's all really wonderful and really charming stuff. 5 stars. So, stop fly posting anonymous dick pics over the local police station's wanted board and turn your attention to the scoreboard. The 1980s finally sneak up from behind and tie with the 1990s for first place, both now with 39 points. The 1960s move up into third with 32 points. The 1970s drop down to fourth with 31 points. The 2000s hold steady in fifth with 26 points. And the 2010s are still resolutely in last place with 21 points. And that's round 9 of Battle of the Decades in the bag. But of course, I know you'd rank these records differently, so why not sound off in the comments and tell me how you'd rank them. Of course, I fully invite you to make your own version of this tournament with your own personal albums of the year and post that in the comments too. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.